On April 12, 2014, the quiet suburb of Pleasant Grove, Utah, was shattered by a discovery so vile it would haunt the town for generations. Darren West, a man freshly released from a 9-year prison sentence for drug manufacturing, stood in the cluttered garage of his family's home at 53th Street, E. 2000 North. The air was thick with the musty scent of neglect, but something far worse lurked beneath. As he tore into a cardboard box sealed with layers of duct tape, his hands trembled with a mix of curiosity and dread. What he uncovered would plunge him into a nightmare beyond comprehension. The 911 call came at 8:47 a.m., a frantic voice cutting through the calm of the dispatch center. Darren's words were barely coherent, choked with panic. There's a body in the garage," he stammered. "A baby. I think it's dead." The operator's heart sank as Darren's voice cracked, describing the grotesque find inside a double-layered trash bag hidden within the box. The stench was unbearable, a sickly sweet rot that clawed at his senses. He thought it was a miscarriage. He was wrong. Police arrived to a scene of eerie disarray. The garage door yawned open, revealing a chaotic mess of scattered boxes, old furniture, and forgotten relics of a fractured family. Darren sat on the curb, his face ashen, eyes wide with horror. He recounted his story to the officers. He'd been clearing out the garage with his parents, hoping to reclaim the home where his 3 daughters, aged 13, 18, and 20, still lived. The house belonged to his parents, a place he'd once shared with his ex-wife, Megan Huntsman, before their marriage unraveled, and she fled to a trailer in Salt Lake City with her new boyfriend. But the garage held secrets that would unravel far more than a marriage. As Darren led officers to the box, the air grew heavier. The foul odor, which a neighbor had complained about weeks earlier, wasn't from a rotting deer head as they'd assumed. It was something far more sinister. Inside the box, nestled within layers of plastic and tape, was the decomposed body of a full-term infant, its tiny form shriveled and gray, a grotesque mockery of life. The officers recoiled, their training no match for the visceral shock. Darren, barely holding himself together, dialed Megan. Her voice trembled over the phone as she admitted the baby was theirs, born while he was in prison. "It was stillborn," she sobbed. "I hid the pregnancy. I couldn't handle it." But the horror was only beginning. A search warrant turned the garage into a crime scene, and as detectives sifted through the clutter, they found another box, sealed with the same meticulous care. A label on the side read, "Baby Stuff CCC Megan's," written in a chillingly casual hand. As they peeled back the tape, a putrid liquid oozed from the plastic bag inside. The stench so overwhelming it drove one officer to gag. Within was another infant's body, its decayed flesh barely clinging to fragile bones. The garage, once a mundane storage space, had become a tomb. In the interrogation room, Megan Huntsman sat hunched, her tear-streaked face betraying a fragile facade. Detective Dan Beckstrom pressed her about the second body. Her response was a gut punch. "You're going to find more," she whispered, her voice hollow. "I don't know how many, but there are more." She insisted they were all stillborn, all fathered by Darren, all hidden from the world. But her story began to crack under scrutiny. One baby, she admitted, was born alive in the bathtub, its faint heartbeat fading as she did nothing. Beckstrom's blood ran cold. A stillbirth was tragic, but plausible. Multiple stillbirths? That was a lie cloaking something far darker. Back at the house, the grim discoveries multiplied. A third box, wrapped tighter than the others, revealed another infant, its body cocooned in vinyl and towels, as if to smother its existence. Then a fourth, hidden beneath blankets in a cubby's shadowed corner. The 5th, 6th, and 7th followed, each discovery more soul-crushing than the last. 7 tiny bodies, each meticulously packaged, each a silent scream from a mother who had chosen death over life. The garage was no longer a storage space, it was a mausoleum of Megan's making. Huntsman's confession unraveled in the interrogation room like a thread pulled from a rotting tapestry. She admitted to strangling 3 of the infants, her hands trembling as she described their fleeting struggles. The others, she claimed, were stillborn, though the decomposition made it impossible to confirm. Forensic analysis later confirmed all 7 were Darren's, 5 girls and 2 boys, their tiny fingerprints tying them to their mother's guilt. The duct tape, the bags, the boxes, all bore Megan's fingerprints, a damning signature of her crimes. Pleasant Grove, a sleepy town of churches and quiet streets, reeled in disbelief. Mayor Mike Daniels called it suburban America, if not smaller, a place where such atrocities were unthinkable. Neighbors whispered in shock, recalling Megan's reclusive nature, her fluctuating weight, her baggy clothes that masked her pregnancies. "She seemed normal," one said, her voice trembling. "Quiet, but normal." Another, Sandy Wall, wept as she wondered why Megan spared her youngest daughter, born amidst this decade of horror, while condemning 7 others to death. Megan's motive was as cold as it was monstrous. Addicted to methamphetamine, she saw the babies as burdens, obstacles to her next hit. "I didn't want the responsibility," she told detectives, her voice devoid of remorse. "The drugs, they were more important." Police Captain Mike Roberts was blunt. It was completely selfish. She chose her addiction over their lives. Megan Huntsman was charged with 6 counts of murder, pleading guilty in a courtroom heavy with grief and outrage. Sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 49 years, she would never again walk free. But for Pleasant Grove, the scars remain. A town forever haunted by the shadows in the garage, where 7 innocent lives were snuffed out, hidden in plain sight.